The Rochester County Courthouse, a hulking edifice of weathered brick and creaking floors, thrummed with the muted cadence of routine on that frigid February morning in 2025, its air heavy with the mingled scents of polished wood, stale coffee, and the faint tang of winter dampness seeping through ancient walls. Clerks hunched over dog-eared files, their pens scratching furiously on yellowed forms, while the low hum of attorneys' whispers and spectators' murmurs wove into the sharp clack of footsteps echoing beneath grimy stained-glass windows. Their once vibrant depictions of justice dulled by decades of soot and neglect. For Samuel Hart, a gaunt, elderly man shuffled in with wrists chafed by cold steel handcuffs, the scene was no mere formality but a crucible, a stark confrontation with a world that had long since turned its back on him. His weathered face, carved with deep lines and scars from a lifetime of war and loss, held a stoic resolve, his pale blue eyes flickering with quiet defiance as officers processed him with the mechanical indifference reserved for vagrants. To them, Hart was a faceless transient, just another name on a crowded docket to be dispatched before lunch. But for one person in the room, the utterance of Hart struck like a lightning bolt, unearthing memories buried beneath years of grief and gratitude. The clerk, a harried man with wire-rimmed glasses perched precariously on his nose, barked without lifting his gaze from his ledger, full name. Samuel James Hart, came the reply, low and gravelly, a faint tremor betraying the effort to pierce the courtroom's ambient din. His stooped shoulders sagged under a threadbare navy peacoat, its dark wool frayed at the cuffs and far too large for his now emaciated frame, the faded seal trident insignia stitched on its breast a ghostly relic of a prouder past. The courtroom's harsh fluorescent lights cast unforgiving shadows, etching every wrinkle and scar into stark relief, each a silent testament to battles fought in distant deserts and personal wars waged in the long, lonely years since. Sam, a former Navy SEAL who served with distinction from 1980 to 2000, stood accused of trespassing, public disturbance, and resisting arrest behind the Maple Street Diner, a modest eatery on Rochester's east side. Its flickering neon sign and grease-streaked windows a beacon for late-night truckers and weary locals. He had no private counsel. His public defender, Clara Ruiz, a young attorney stretched thin by an overflowing caseload, had been summoned to an emergency hearing in a neighboring court, leaving Sam to face the judicial machinery alone, as he had so many times in the alleys and shelters of the city. Judge Eleanor Vance, a composed woman in her mid-50s with sharp gray eyes and a reputation for meticulous fairness, opened his file with the practiced ease of her 2 decades on the bench. Her fingers froze, her pulse quickening as she read the name, Samuel James Hart. It wasn't merely a defendant's name, it was the SEAL who, on June 9, 2001, in the blood-soaked chaos of a Kandahar ravine, had saved her father, Captain Robert Vance, from certain death during an ambush that decimated half their unit. Her grip tightened on the folder, knuckles whitening, but years of judicial discipline forced her face to remain a mask of neutrality, concealing the storm of recognition, gratitude, and anguish swelling within her. She adjusted her glasses, her mind racing to reconcile the hero immortalized in her father's letters with the broken, shivering figure before her, a man the world had discarded like so much refuse. The prosecutor, Ethan Caldwell, a young lawyer in a tailored Navy suit, exuded the sharp ambition of someone yet to be tempered by life's harder truths. He launched into his case with a practiced cadence, his voice laced with a subtle disdain that grated against the room's somber mood. The defendant was warned 5 times this month for loitering behind the Maple Street Diner, a vital business in our community. We have 4 formal complaints, 3 from adjacent businesses, including a dry cleaner and a pharmacy, and 1 from a resident citing unsightly presence. He refuses to comply with lawful dispersal orders, disrupting the commercial district and undermining public order. His words painted Sam as a deliberate nuisance, conveniently omitting critical context. Sam wasn't panhandling, harassing patrons, or causing chaos. On sub-zero nights, when Rochester's winds howled with a cruelty that could freeze breath in the lungs, he huddled beside the diner's kitchen vent, a rusted grate that exhaled warm, grease-laden air from the fryers, a fragile lifeline for a man with no home, seeking only to survive another winter's merciless grip. Officer Daniel Hayes, a stocky patrolman with a buzz cut and a weary demeanor shaped by years on the beat, took the stand, his testimony delivered in a flat, factual tone. Found him at 11:20 p.m. On February 3rd, sitting by the vent, eating a burger the cook slipped him. Asked him to move. He said, "Please, just a minute to finish." No threats, no real resistance, but he didn't leave right away. Caldwell, sensing an opportunity to bolster his case, pressed for a 30-day restraining order barring Sam from the commercial district, a sanction that would sever his only source of warmth, the occasional hot meal, and the faint dignity offered by the diner's staff, who saw in him not a vagrant but a man clinging to the edges of humanity. Eleanor's gaze settled on Sam, her expression firm yet searching, as if peering through the wreckage to find the warrior her father had revered. "Do you have counsel today, Mr. Hart?" He shook his head, his thinning gray hair catching the light, revealing streaks of silver that spoke of years exposed to the elements. "Public defenders at another court, Your Honor." "Will you speak in your own defense?" Sam cleared his throat, the sound like dry leaves crunching underfoot, and spoke with a halting sincerity that silenced the room. "I'm not apologizing, Your Honor. Just needed to stay warm. Wasn't hurting anyone, wasn't begging or stealing. Just trying to get through the night, one at a time." Her next question was deliberate, laced with an intent that only she understood. "Why that diner specifically, Mr. Hart?" Sam's eyes flickered, a spark of memory breaking through the haze of trauma and exhaustion. "The cook, Tommy Delgado. His uncle, Manny, served with me in Desert Storm, 91. Manny took a bullet meant for me in Kuwait, saved my life. Tommy's been good to me, leave scraps sometimes, burgers, coffee, whatever's left. Known him since he was a kid, running around Manny's auto shop, always asking about Navy stories." His words carried the clipped cadence of a soldier, each syllable a thread clinging to an identity battered by years of neglect and invisibility. Eleanor leaned forward slightly, her voice softening but precise. "Your service, U.S. Navy SEALs, 1980 to 2000, Afghanistan, second team, correct?" Sam nodded, his posture stiffening instinctively, as if summoned to attention. "Yes, ma'am." The courtroom doors swung open with a sharp groan, slicing through the tension like a blade. A man in a tailored charcoal suit, Victor Langley, strode purposefully to the defense table, his polished leather briefcase gleaming under the fluorescent lights. "Your Honor, I'm Victor Langley, retained to represent Mr. Hart. I request a 15-minute recess to confer with my client." Eleanor's brow arched, her voice measured but tinged with curiosity. "Retained by whom?" The court wasn't informed of new counsel. Langley's smile was calm, unshaken, exuding the confidence of a man who thrived in high-stakes arenas. "A recent decision, Your Honor. Vance and Langley is taking this case pro bono, effective this morning, after a review of the defendant's service record." Whispers rippled through the gallery, spectators craning their necks, reporters scribbling notes, and a cluster of veterans in worn jackets exchanging knowing glances, their presence a quiet testament to the brotherhood that lingered long after service. Eleanor granted the recess, her mind a whirlwind of questions about Langley's sudden involvement and the man he was defending. Sam squinted at Langley, suspicion etched into his weathered features, his voice gruff with distrust. "I got no money for this, mister. Can't pay a dime, and I don't take charity." Langley's tone was gentle but firm, his eyes meeting Sam's with unwavering respect. "You don't need to, Chief. The firm's covering it. Someone out there believes in you, and I'm here to make sure the world hears your story." In her chambers, a small room lined with law books and framed certificates, Eleanor's hands trembled as she unlocked a mahogany desk drawer, her sanctuary amid the chaos of judicial life. Inside lay a faded photograph, her and her father, Captain Robert Vance, at his 1998 promotion ceremony at Naval Station Norfolk, his arm around her, both smiling under a cloudless summer sky, her law school graduation just months away. Beside it, a dog-eared letter from Kandahar, its ink smudged from countless readings, the paper worn thin at the creases. "Chief Hart carried me through hell, bullets flying, RPGs tearing the ground apart. Said, no seal left behind. I owe him my life, Ellie." She'd spent years trying to find Hart after her father's death in a 2003 mission in Iraq, only to be told he'd been medically discharged in 2001. Battling severe PTSD and a traumatic brain injury from an IED blast that left him with chronic migraines and tremors. The VA had lost track of him, their records a labyrinth of errors and oversights, and her private searches, through military contacts, veterans organizations, even a private investigator, yielded nothing but dead ends and vague reports of a man drifting through shelters. Langley knocked softly, stepping inside, his face grave. "It's him, Eleanor. The seal from your father's letters. I cross-checked his service record. Same unit, same mission, confirmed by declassified after-action reports." Her voice cracked, the judge's stoic facade crumbling for a moment. "He doesn't know me, Victor. I changed my name after law school, after marrying Tom. I was Eleanor Vance, not Parker, by the time I tried to find him. How did this happen to him? How does a hero, a man who carried my father to safety, end up like this? Langley's face darkened, his voice heavy with the weight of grim truths uncovered in his firm's rapid investigation. Medical discharge in 2001, TBI, and severe PTSD, barely treated. His wife, Laura, left during his last tour, couldn't handle the deployments or his night terrors when he came back changed. VA benefits were delayed, misfiled, or outright denied for years due to clerical errors and underfunding. He worked construction until the tremors and migraines made it impossible, lost his savings to medical bills and a predatory landlord. By 2010, the streets claimed him. He's been invisible ever since, surviving on odd jobs and the kindness of people like Tommy. Flashback to Kandahar, June 9, 2001. The desert air was thick with dust and cordite, the dawn sky split by the scream of RPGs and the staccato of AK-47 fire. Chief Hart, then 41, led his SEAL team alongside Captain Vance's unit, escorting a supply convoy through a narrow ravine. The ambush came without warning. Insurgents on the ridges, raining death. "Get down," Hart roared, diving behind a shattered Humvee as bullets tore through metal. Captain Vance, hit by shrapnel, collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. "Leave me," he gasped, clutching his leg. Hart ignored him, slinging the captain over his shoulder, his own body a shield as he sprinted through a gauntlet of fire, dodging explosions, his lungs burning. 2 miles to the evac point, he carried Vance, then went back for 3 others, dragging them to safety under a hail of bullets, a grazing shot searing his arm. "No SEAL left behind," he muttered, his mantra against the chaos. That day, he saved 22 lives, but the cost was etched into his body and mind, a debt the world would forget. Eleanor returned to the bench, her black robe a shield over the turmoil within, her face an impeccable mask of authority. "Mr. Hart, your record confirms service in Kandahar, June 9, 2001. Do you recall that operation?" Sam straightened, his frail frame summoning a soldier's bearing, muscle memory overriding decades of decay. "Yes, ma'am. Convoy escort, supply run. Ambushed at dawn. RPGs, small arms fire. Pinned us down in a ravine, no cover." His voice grew distant, as if narrating a scene playing before his eyes, the desert's heat and screams vivid again. "Did you save Captain Robert Vance?" Silence gripped the courtroom, every breath held, the weight of history pressing down. Sam's gaze drifted, lost in the dust and smoke of memory. "Yes, ma'am. He was hit, shrapnel in his leg, bleeding bad. Carried him 2 miles to the evac point. He kept saying, 'Leave me, save yourself.' I told him, no SEAL left behind. Got him out, then went back for others." A voice pierced the hush from the gallery, raw with emotion. "I was there." An older man, his Marine Corps cap tilted on gray hair, leaned heavily on a cane, his eyes glistening. "Chief Hart saved 5 of us that day. Dragged us through gunfire, took a grazing shot in his arm. Never stopped, not once." The gallery erupted in murmurs, a tide of awe and disbelief sweeping through spectators, reporters, and veterans alike. Caldwell stood, his confidence visibly shaken, his voice faltering. "Your Honor, with respect, the charges remain." His actions, however noble his past, violated city ordinances and disrupted local businesses. Eleanor raised a hand, her gesture commanding silence with the authority of a seasoned jurist. "I have questions for the defendant. Mr. Hart, you were injured later that tour, correct?" Sam nodded, his fingers twitching slightly, a lingering echo of the blast that changed him. "Yes, ma'am. July 2001, patrol hit an IED outside Kandahar. Blast threw me 20 feet. Head trauma, cracked skull, shrapnel in my shoulder. Discharged for it. Honorable discharge, with notations of PTSD and traumatic brain injury," she confirmed, her voice steady but laced with empathy, her eyes briefly meeting Sam's, searching for the man her father described. She turned to Langley, her tone formal but expectant. "Does your client wish to address the charges formally?" Langley stood tall, his presence commanding, his voice resonant with conviction. "We request full dismissal, Your Honor." Mr. Hart sought shelter in life-threatening cold. Temperatures dropped to 5 degrees Fahrenheit on February 3rd, with wind chill at -10 degrees Fahrenheit, per NOAA records. He had tacit permission from diner staff to remain by the vent. The cook, Thomas Delgado, is prepared to testify, as is the diner's manager, Ms. Carlin Gwynn. Tommy Delgado, a wiry man in his 30s with a faded Marine Corps globe tattoo on his forearm, took the stand, his hands fidgeting but his voice resolute, thick with emotion. My uncle, Manny Delgado, served with Chief Hart in Desert Storm. Said Hart saved his squad in Kuwait, took a bullet shielding him in '91. I've known the chief since I was a kid, always hanging around Uncle Manny's auto shop, listening to his stories. I leave food for him, burgers, coffee, whatever's left after closing. He's no trespasser. I told him he could stay by the vent to keep warm. Manager knew, never had a problem with it. Caldwell objected, his voice sharp, grasping for control. No formal permission was documented. Verbal claims from a biased witness don't override 4 complaints, including one from a resident citing health concerns. Langley countered smoothly, producing a notarized affidavit, its crisp pages catching the light. This is from Ms. Carla Gwynn, diner manager, dated 2 weeks ago, confirming staff awareness and approval of Mr. Hart's presence. The complaints came from businesses, a pharmacy and dry cleaner, unaware of this arrangement, and the resident's health concern was speculative, with no evidence of harm. Eleanor's eyes narrowed, her mind dissecting the evidence with surgical precision. This shifts the context significantly. Officer Hayes, clarify the nature of the resistance, he reported. Hayes shifted uncomfortably, his voice low. He didn't fight, Your Honor. Just asked for a minute to eat. Took him maybe 90 seconds to stand. I noted resistance per protocol, but it wasn't aggressive. Eleanor nodded, her expression unreadable. Court will recess for 10 minutes. In her chambers, Eleanor paced, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, the weight of the moment pressing against her. She dialed a number etched in her memory, her voice urgent but controlled. Colonel Grayson, it's Judge Eleanor Vance. I need you at the Rochester County Courthouse now. It's about Chief Samuel Hart. Yes, that Hart. Bring the documentation. Court resumed with a ripple of anticipation as 3 uniformed officers entered, a stern-faced Colonel Marcus Grayson, a Master Chief named Torres with a chest heavy with ribbons, and a young petty officer clutching a polished wooden case, its mahogany surface gleaming. Sam snapped to attention, his frail body trembling but erect, as if summoned to a long-forgotten parade ground, his eyes fixed on the officers with a mix of instinct and disbelief. Eleanor addressed the room, her voice steady but heavy with gravitas, each word measured to carry the weight of truth. Before proceeding, I must disclose a personal connection to ensure transparency. Captain Robert Vance, referenced in testimony, was my father. Gasps punctuated the silence, reporters scribbling furiously, their pens racing to capture the revelation. Sam's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition dawning as he studied Eleanor's face, seeing traces of the captain in her sharp jawline and resolute gaze. I tried to find the man who saved him, she continued, her voice unwavering despite the emotion beneath. I was told he'd been reassigned, then discharged in 2001. The system, our system, lost him to bureaucracy and neglect. Until today. Colonel Grayson stepped forward, his grizzled features softened by reverence, his gaze fixed on Sam with the respect reserved for a brother-in-arms. The Navy has searched for Chief Hart for over a decade. Declassified records from Kandahar, unsealed last year under a congressional review, prompted a re-examination of his actions. The petty officer opened the wooden case, revealing the Navy Cross, its blue ribbon and bronze star catching the light, a symbol of valor few ever beheld. For extraordinary heroism, Chief Samuel J. Hart is awarded the Navy Cross, the Navy's second highest honor. His actions on June 9, 2001, saved an entire convoy from annihilation, preserving 22 lives under relentless enemy fire, at great personal risk. A sacred silence enveloped the courtroom, broken only by a stifled sob from a woman in the gallery, her hands clasped tightly. Sam's voice cracked, barely audible, his eyes glistening with tears he fought to contain. Must be a mistake, sir. I just did my job. Grayson's eyes shone, his voice soft but resolute. You saved lives, Chief. That's more than a job. That's a legacy. Another voice rose from the gallery, a younger veteran in a wheelchair, his voice steady despite his emotion. I served with Hart's unit in '99. He trained us, taught us to never leave a man behind. He lived it. The gallery rose in unison, veterans in faded caps saluting, civilians clutching tissues, even Caldwell, his earlier arrogance melted into humility, his eyes red as he stood. joining the silent tribute that spoke louder than words. Eleanor's voice trembled, betraying the weight of the moment, yet she pressed on, her duty as a judge anchoring her. Given the evidence, testimony, and these extraordinary circumstances, all charges against Chief Samuel J. Hart are dismissed with prejudice. This court is adjourned. The gavel struck, its echo of final salute resonating through the room, a sound that seemed to carry beyond the courthouse walls. Master Chief Torres approached Sam with a tablet, his tone warm, almost familial. "Chief, your VA disability rating's been corrected to 100%, retroactive to your 2001 discharge. Full benefits, housing, health care, pension, and back pay are being processed. You'll have a check by next week, enough to cover years of owed support." Langley added, his smile proud, his voice firm with commitment. "Our firm will oversee every step, no red tape, no delays. We've already contacted the VA's regional director to expedite your case." Tommy rushed forward, enveloping Sam in a tearful embrace, his voice choked with guilt and gratitude. "Uncle Manny said you were a hero, Chief. I should have done more, found you a place to stay." "I'm so sorry." Caldwell, his face flushed with shame, approached hesitantly, his polished demeanor softened by contrition. "I didn't know, sir. None of us did. I'm sorry for how this went, for judging you without the full story." Sam, overwhelmed by the outpouring, nodded, his voice a whisper, raw with humility. "Just doing what I could, son. Always just doing what I could." Eleanor descended from the bench, shedding her judicial robe to stand before Sam not as a judge, but as a daughter, her eyes brimming with tears she no longer fought to hide. "My father wrote in his last letter that you carried him through gunfire, saying, 'No seal left behind.' He lived 3 more years because of you, saw my law school graduation, walked me down the aisle. Today, Chief Hart, we brought you back." Sam's shoulders shook, a sob escaping as he met her gaze, seeing the captain strengthen her. "He was a good man, ma'am. Never wanted thanks, just wanted him safe." 3 weeks later, Sam stood in a modest apartment in Rochester's Veterans Housing Complex, its clean plaster walls and humming radiator a stark contrast to the icy alleys he'd endured for over a decade. On the wall hung a simple oak frame, displaying his Navy Cross, Purple Heart, and Bronze Star, all retrieved from a forgotten VA storage unit in Buffalo by Langley's tireless team, who'd spent days combing through mislabeled boxes. The apartment, small but warm, was furnished with donations from local veterans groups, a sturdy bed, a second-hand couch, a kitchen table where Sam now ate meals that didn't come from a dumpster. A soft knock broke his reverie. Eleanor, dressed in a wool coat and scarf, stood at the door, holding a small cedar box, her face free of the courtroom's formality. "May I come in, Chief?" Sam managed a faint smile, his voice stronger now, steadied by rest and care. "Only if you call me Sam." She laughed softly, a sound that warmed the room. "Deal, if you call me Eleanor." She handed him the box, her fingers lingering as if passing a sacred relic. This was among Dad's things, stored in his old footlocker. "A letter for you." Sam's hands, still calloused but steadier now, unfolded the yellowed paper, the ink faded but legible, written in Captain Vance's precise hand. "Chief Hart saved me today, June 9th, 2001. Carried me through hell, bullets tearing the air, said no one gets left behind. I want to be half the man he is, to live up to his example." Sam's eyes welled, his voice breaking as he read the words aloud, each one a lifeline pulling him from the abyss. "Captain was a good man, ma'am. Never thought I'd hear from him again." Eleanor's smile was tender, her hand resting on his arm, a gesture of connection that transcended titles. "He was Sam. But you were his hero, his North Star." Outside, snow fell gently, blanketing Rochester in a serene silence, as if the world itself paused to honor the moment. Sam, standing taller than he had in decades, his back straighter, his eyes clearer, whispered, "Someone remembered my name." After all this time, someone remembered. His story, from the shadowed alleys behind the Maple Street diner to a national headline, became a beacon of redemption, a call to action that reverberated far beyond Rochester. The local paper, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, ran a front-page feature titled "Hero Restored: A SEAL's Journey from the Streets to Honor," sparking a wave of donations to veterans' shelters across upstate New York. Langley's firm established the Samuel Hart Fund for Homeless Veterans, seeded with a $100,000 grant from their pro bono budget, aimed at providing emergency housing and legal aid to those the system had failed. The VA, stung by public scrutiny and Eleanor's pointed letters to congressional oversight committees, launched an internal review to identify and rectify cases of veterans lost to bureaucratic errors, with Sam's file serving as a case study for reform. Sam himself, though still adjusting to stability, began volunteering at a local veterans center, sharing his story with younger servicemen and women, his quiet strength a reminder that healing was possible. Tommy Delgado, inspired by the trial, started a weekly Veterans Night at the diner, offering free meals to former service members, a small gesture that drew dozens each week, fostering a community where none had existed. Caldwell, humbled by the experience, enrolled in a veterans law clinic, redirecting his ambition to advocate for those like Sam. Eleanor, meanwhile, kept in touch with Sam, visiting monthly with coffee and conversation, their bond a quiet tribute to her father's memory. Sam's journey from invisibility in Rochester's frozen streets to a place of honor in the nation's conscience proved that courage endures, even when buried under years of neglect. It showed that compassion, when paired with action, could heal wounds deeper than flesh. Above all, it stood as a testament to a truth Sam had lived by since Kandahar. No one, no matter how broken, should be left behind. As spring broke over Rochester, and the Maple Street Diner's vent continued to hum, Sam's story lingered, a reminder that a single moment of recognition could restore a life, and that the debt owed to those who serve is never fully repaid.